Hey, this is Fang. I'm your host of System Update, coming to you live from a very foggy San Francisco. Glenn Greenwald is out this week. Last night, Trump gave his fifth State of the Union address. The president doubled down on tariffs, called for an end to the war in Ukraine, and touted his many executive orders, especially on DEI. And yes, there were moments of theatrics between Trump and the Democrats in the audience. But Trump did something special that I think deserves greater scrutiny. Unlike recent administrations, including his own, he dedicated a big part of his speech to his quest to root out wasteful spending. Let's watch a clip.
And to that end, I have created the brand new Department of Government Efficiency, DOGE. Perhaps you've heard of it. Perhaps. Which is headed by Elon Musk, who is in the gallery tonight. Thank you, Elon. He's working very hard. He didn't need this. He didn't need this. Thank you very much. We appreciate it. Everybody here, even this side, appreciates it, I believe. They just don't want to admit that. Just listen to some of the appalling waste we have already identified. $22 billion from HHS to provide free housing and cars for illegal aliens. $45 million for diversity, equity, and inclusion scholarships in Burma, $40 million to improve the social and economic inclusion of sedentary migrants. Nobody knows what that is. $8 million to promote LGBTQI+ in the African nation of Lesotho, which nobody has ever heard of. $60 million for indigenous peoples and Afro-Colombian empowerment in Central America, $60 million. $8 million for making mice transgender. This is real. $32 million for a left-wing propaganda operation in Moldova. $10 million for male circumcision in Mozambique. $20 million for the Arab Sesame Street in the Middle East. It's a program, $20 million for a program. $1.9 billion to recently created Decarbonization of Homes Committee, headed up, and we know she's involved. Just at the last moment, the money was passed over by a woman named Stacey Abrams. Have you ever heard of her? A $3.5 million consulting contract for lavish fish monitoring. $1.5 million for voter confidence in Liberia. $14 million for social cohesion in Mali. $59 million for illegal alien hotel rooms in New York City. He's a real estate developer. He's done very well. $250,000 to increase vegan local climate action innovation in Zambia. $42 million for social and behavior change in Uganda. $14 million for improving public procurement in Serbia. $47 million for improving learning outcomes in Asia. Asia's doing very well with learning. We know what we're doing. Should use it ourselves. And $101 million for DEI contracts at the Department of Education, the most ever paid, nothing even like it. Under the Trump administration, all of these scams.
This is an important topic and one that really cuts across ideological and partisan lines, or at least it should. Corruption is a soul-sucking force, not only because it bloats government debt and deficits. We all suffer from waste. For every fraudulent contract, for every misallocated dollar, that's a loss of resources that could have been spent making America more educated, more secure, more healthy, and more prepared for the future. It's also a problem that fuels alienation. We lose faith in our elected officials, in our entire system of governance, when we can't count on basic accountability for how our tax dollars are spent. Where I live in San Francisco, the government has one of the largest per capita local budgets in the world, yet problems never seem to go away. No matter how much money gets spent, housing gets more expensive, there are rampant overdose deaths, a growing homeless population, despite the highest level of spending on homeless outreach programs in the nation, out of control property crime, empty storefronts, and programs that seem like a parody of municipal waste. $1.7 million spent building a single toilet in Noe Valley, $2 billion on a small expansion of the Muni subway, which was over budget, which blew through deadlines, and now is shutting down just after opening because of faulty construction. And the more the city spends, the more questions are raised as NGO and private contractors keep getting busted with their hands in the cookie jar. We've had repeated FBI raids of city workers and city contractors, scandal after scandal about missing funds and kickback schemes. The problems seem endless, and given that so many Democratic leaders, from Nancy Pelosi to Kamala Harris to Gavin Newsom, got their political start in this city, it's no wonder that many Americans question whether these Californians are fit to lead. But as bad as the problems of San Francisco have become, the city pales in comparison to the federal government. The Government Accountability Office estimated that between 2018 and 2022, taxpayers lost somewhere between $233 billion and $521 billion due to fraud. Much of that money was lost during the pandemic, when a gusher of nearly $2 trillion went out with little accountability. Both Democrats and Republicans are to blame for the lack of oversight. But this is not a phenomenon that is limited to the emergency actions taken around COVID-19, not even close. The most pernicious systemic fraud can be found throughout the system, especially in healthcare and defense spending. President Donald Trump, to his credit, has made it a focal point of his administration. His new Department of Government Efficiency, also known as DOGE, helmed in part by Elon Musk, has rapidly deployed in agency after agency, slashing private contracts and cutting the workforce. In particular, he has moved to scale down the entire USAID budget. Like a lot of the Trump administration, it's a mix of good and bad, of bold action that no other administration would take, alongside reckless actions that could do real harm. In many cases, they're missing the window of opportunity to go after real waste embedded in our system, and have instead cut self-funding agencies like the CFPB. First, let's talk a little bit about the good around USAID cuts. I've reported for years on USAID money going to groups that work to overthrow foreign governments, undermine democratic elections, and indeed censor even Americans over bogus claims of misinformation. Congressional Democrats have claimed that USAID simply, in the words of Senator Chris Murphy, quote unquote, supports freedom fighters all over the globe. That reality, however, is much more murky. USAID has funded the Zinc Network, an anti-disinformation contractor that has targeted reporter Max Blumenthal, politician Vivek Ramaswamy, and Congressman Andy Biggs. USAID also funded a pesticide industry public relations effort known as VFluence, which dug up dirt about American food journalists such as Michael Pollan and Mark Bittman. But most troubling, the Foreign Assistance Agency has financed a network of groups in Ukraine that have spread unsubstantiated claims that Americans in favor of peace are part of a dangerous misinformation network tied to the Kremlin. In Ukraine, USAID, through its contractor Internews, supports a network of social media-focused news outlets, including the New Voice of Ukraine, Vox Ukraine, Detector Media, and the Institute of Mass Information. These news outlets have produced a series of videos and reports targeting economist Jeffrey Sachs, commentator Tucker Carlson, Professor John Mearsheimer, and even our own esteemed host, Glenn Greenwald, as figures within a, quote, network of Russian propaganda who need to be censored from social media. In other words, American taxpayers have been funding a defamatory smear campaign against other American citizens, all in order to build out support for another forever war. But let's not forget, USAID also helps administer global health programs that have been widely touted for saving millions of lives. USAID helps administer PEPFAR, a program to distribute HIV/AIDS medications. And the agency also funds the distribution of medicine and preventative care for malaria, polio, tuberculosis, and a variety of programs for maternal and child health care in developing countries. There's a pause in these programs as the administration reviews them, but it seems clear that there's a real risk that they may be cut. These programs might not be perfect, but they've generally impacted the world in profound and positive ways. Given how much other waste, fraud, and abuse exists in our system, these global health programs should be a low priority, if not even not a priority at all when it comes to cuts. Where should we be cutting? To prepare this segment, I just looked back at my own reporting over the last decade. I've written for years about Pentagon waste that is far beyond the dollar figure for any silly-sounding science grant or health program that was discussed last night at the State of the Union. In 2015, a military blimp broke free from its harness in suburban Maryland and dragged a cable through homes, causing destruction and property damage. Where did this thing come from?
1 week ago, we were chasing a blimp that broke free from the Aberdeen Proving Ground. Tonight, the Army still really hasn't let us know what could happen. We do know that the Pentagon suspended the JLENS program for now. The pair of blimps was being used to scan for incoming missiles and other flying threats. After the first one broke free, the Army grounded the second blimp. The military is waiting for the results of its investigation before making a final call on the program. And Congressman Dutch Ruppersberger issued a statement on the Pentagon decision. He says it's an unfortunate irony that a program designed to help safeguard the skies over the nation's capital threatened the security of our citizens on the ground, including in my district. He goes on to say the program is important for the defense of our state and country, but says civilian safety must come first. He said the decision to continue the program should come after the Army's investigation into how the blimp got free in the first place.
The project was called JLENS, or Joint Land Attack Cruise Missile Defense Elevated Netted Sensor System. Produced by Raytheon at a nearly $3 billion cost to the Army, the project was intended to defend against cruise missiles. Theoretically, it was supposed to track objects over an area the size of Texas. But these blimps kept getting destroyed in weather events and faced chronic technical issues. Frankly, they didn't seem to serve any useful purpose. Finally, former Joint Chief of Staff James Cartwright rescued the program and had it deployed to Afghanistan, where it again failed to provide any real protection to U.S. troops. But Cartwright, after securing the deal, joined Raytheon's board of directors, a job that paid him nearly $900,000 a year. Inevitably, JLENS ended up in Maryland, where it eventually untethered and caused random destruction. This phenomenon is actually not unique. There are dozens of failed missile defense and radar systems that get refunded year after year by Congress under the influence of defense lobbyists and the allure for politicians and staff to one day become defense lobbyists. Let's take a look at a few quick examples. The government has spent $40 billion on the ground-based mid-course defense system managed by Raytheon and Boeing. That program, which was carefully scripted with conditions in which the system operators knew the exact location, trajectory, speed, and dimensions of test missiles, even under those conditions, the GMD intercept systems failed to consistently produce any interceptions. There's the Kinetic Energy Interceptor, a project from Northrop Grumman and Raytheon that also failed at missile interception systems and was canceled after Navy officials found multiple problems, including its limited range. That program cost $1.7 billion. Or what about the multi-object kill vehicle developed by Raytheon and Lockheed Martin at a cost of $700 million? This program was canceled after military officials found that the anti-missile program faced insurmountable technical challenges. Or finally, the sea-based X-band radar, a floating radar designed to detect enemy missile launches, which failed after tests found that the radar had a limited field of vision and was highly vulnerable to corrosion at sea. The program, managed by Boeing and Raytheon, cost $2.2 billion. I could go on and on, just on the failed missile defense and radar systems, and I could spend another hour talking about faulty logistics systems, corrosive and fraudulent work on submarines that leave them completely ineffective and inoperable, billions of dollars of waste on MRAPs and tanks, and the list keeps going on and on. Where is the watchdog? Who's keeping this accountable? There are a few champions in Congress, people like Rand Paul and Bernie Sanders, who consistently call out military waste, but they are in the minority. The defense industrial lobby largely keeps Congress and any administration, Democrat or Republican, completely subdued and subservient. We heard reports initially that DOGE was crossing the Potomac and planning to tackle military fraud and waste. But so far, we've only heard about canceled military DEI contracts. I have no problem cutting the DEI contracts, but let's be honest, that is small potatoes compared to the big fraudulent and wasteful contracts from the defense industrial base.
Thanks for watching this clip from System Update, our live show that airs every Monday through Friday at 7 p.m. Eastern exclusively on Rumble. You can catch the full nightly shows live or view the backlog of episodes for free on our Rumble page. You can also find full episodes the morning after they air across all major podcasting platforms, including Spotify and Apple. All the information you need is linked below. We hope to see you there.